Let's get started with our first news. Islam Makhachev returned home to Dagestan on Sunday after his UFC 322 victory over JDM, and the moment he arrived at the airport, the media swarmed him with questions about what comes next. Calm, composed, and still carrying the aura of a dominant champion, Islam took a moment to address the potential challengers lining up for his first welterweight title defense. One name that came up immediately was Ian Garry, who had called him out following his win over the weekend. Islam didn't seem shaken, nor was he overly impressed. In fact, he mentioned that Garry's performance didn't stand out to him, not in a way that demands urgency or excitement. Still, he didn't dismiss the idea completely. He said he's open to the matchup because at the end of the day, he'll face whoever the UFC decides to put in front of him. But make no mistake, Islam made it clear that nothing about Garry screams must-see or must-fight at this moment. Another name he was asked about was Shavkat Rakhmonov. Islam spoke highly of Shavkat, acknowledging his skill set and saying he'd accept that fight without hesitation. But he also noted something important. The UFC may be reluctant to push Shavkat straight into a title shot due to his recent inactivity. Islam wasn't criticizing him. He was simply pointing out the reality of timing, momentum, and how the UFC tends to book fights. Even so, he didn't shy away from the idea. If Shavkat is the guy, Islam is ready. Then came the big conversation, a possible super fight with Ilya. With Ilya rising fast and gaining massive attention, many fans have been pushing for this showdown. Islam didn't deny its appeal, but he also didn't sugarcoat the situation. He said the UFC would need to bring a very strong offer, something big, something that truly makes sense, for him to move down and face Ilya at 155. He emphasized that after winning 2 belts in 2 divisions, he's earned the right to make smart, calculated decisions about his career. Islam wrapped up the interview by reminding everyone that he's not running from anyone. Whoever the UFC puts next, he'll be ready, prepared, and focused on proving once again why he's one of the most dominant fighters in the sport today. Move on to another news. Darren Till has officially gone off on Ian Garry, unleashing one of the most fiery, emotionally charged rants we've heard from him in a long time. This all came after Garry's recent confrontation with Khamzat, which instantly went viral and reignited the ongoing tension between the two. But Till didn't just react, he exploded. Posting on X, he made it clear that while he respects Garry's ability inside the cage, everything outside of it is a completely different story. Till began by acknowledging that Ian Garry is, without question, a very good fighter. He even emphasized that part repeatedly, almost as if he wanted to make sure nobody misunderstood his point. But then he switched gears, saying he simply cannot say the same about Garry's personality or the way he presents himself to the world. According to Till, Garry's public persona feels forced, manufactured, and deeply insincere. He wrote that Ian Garry might be possibly the fakest human on earth. Till explained that Garry is fake beyond all beliefs, and that despite trying, he finds it incredibly difficult to like him. He described sitting in his room, battling his own internal demons, trying to convince himself to see Garry differently. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't shake the feeling that Garry's entire demeanor just isn't real. Till specifically addressed the altercation with Khamzat, saying Garry calling him a child was embarrassing and fake. According to Till, the entire interaction was staged, and when Garry turned his back, it was obvious he was scared. He compared Khamzat to himself, claiming both of them react the same way when someone talks. "If you chat, when we see you, it's on," Till wrote, making it clear that he recognizes that instinct in Khamzat. He continued by saying that Ian is a very good fighter, but simply so unlikable. So unlikable. Till also criticized Garry for hating on Leon's performance after the fight, calling it unnecessary and disrespectful. He claimed Garry had been kicked out of gyms before, describing him as a rat at the end of the day. Till ended by saying that despite Garry's talent and despite his own attempts to support him, Ian Garry remains, in his words, a proper fake. And nothing about him feels genuine. Move on to another news. Arman has fired back hard at Ilya after a new backstage video completely contradicted Ilya's latest claim. Last night, Ilya went online saying he had slapped Arman during a post-fight altercation, trying to paint the moment as some dominant, heated exchange. But as new footage surfaced, fans quickly noticed something different. The clip didn't show a slap. It didn't show aggression. It didn't even show tension. Instead, it showed Arman and Ilya going head-to-head in what looked like a surprisingly calm, almost friendly interaction, despite all the bitterness they've thrown at each other over the past months. Still, Ilya doubled down. He posted the video himself and added a lengthy caption that instantly stirred the pot. He wrote, "Arman, every time we see each other in person, you freeze up like a scared duck with no idea what to do. You know I handle you however I want. I fight whoever the UFC chooses. And remember, I slapped you and you just laughed. Then you go around acting like a gangster. So keep going, you're on the right path. Just a few levels below me, kid." Ilya was clearly trying to control the narrative, presenting himself as confident, dominant, and unfazed. But Arman was not letting that slide. Not even a little. Shortly after Ilya's post began circulating, Arman jumped onto social media with his own response, and this one came with precision. He wrote, "Bro, you touched my neck like we were taking a family photo, and now you're calling it a slap online." Arman highlighted exactly what fans saw in the video. There was no strike, no hostility, nothing close to the dramatic version Ilya tried to sell. Arman continued, "The clip is clear. Your insecurity's even clearer. I don't need to act tough for Twitter. My work is inside the cage." With that line, Arman reminded everyone where the real proving ground is. Not behind cameras, not in hallways, and definitely not through exaggerated stories online. Then he ended his message with a final hit. "If you want to know what a real slap feels like, I'll be happy to educate you. See you soon, Ilya." This rivalry is heating up fast, and both men are leaning fully into it. But now the video evidence is out, and the fans are watching every move. Move on to another news. Robert Whittaker has stirred up a massive debate after saying he believes Islam Makhachev would beat a prime Georges St. Pierre. GSP is widely considered the greatest welterweight of all time, a dominant champion who also captured the middleweight title. Islam, meanwhile, has now become a two-division UFC champion and continues to build a legacy that fans and analysts compare to some of the sport's most legendary names. Speaking on the latest episode of his MMA Arcade podcast, Whittaker broke down the hypothetical matchup in detail. When asked directly, Prime GSP versus Islam Makhachev, who wins? Whittaker paused, acknowledging just how difficult the question really is. He emphasized that at welterweight, the matchup becomes even trickier because both fighters possess styles that are extremely effective and extremely different. Whittaker described GSP as a springy, karate-esque fighter, someone who excelled at shooting from long range, punching from outside, mixing levels, and dominating scrambles. He highlighted GSP's elite cardio, his ability to chain wrestle, and the high-level jiu-jitsu that allowed him to control opponents in every phase of the fight. But when it came to choosing a winner, Whittaker ultimately leaned toward Islam, saying he thinks Islam would get it done. He explained that if the fight turned into a scramble-heavy, wrestling-heavy battle, Islam would come out on top because he is built for those situations. In Whittaker's words, Islam thrives in chaos, thrives in pressure, and thrives in the kind of non-stop grappling exchanges that break most fighters over time. He compared Islam's style to fighters who specialize in overwhelming opponents through pure physicality and positional dominance, noting that Islam wouldn't need to rely on the full MMA toolbox in the same way GSP did. GSP used his wrestling and grappling to force reactions, then stood back up to box, creating constant uncertainty for his opponents. He made them fear the takedown so he could dominate on the feet, then mix the takedown back in whenever he wanted. Islam, Whittaker argued, is different. If Islam gets you down, you ain't getting back up. That, he believes, is the defining factor. Islam's pressure, strength, and top control are simply too much. In a long, grinding fight, Whittaker thinks Islam's style would eventually take over, making him the one who walks away with the win. Move on to another news. Max Holloway has fired off some harsh criticism toward Arman after Arman's intense moment with Dan Hooker during the UFC Qatar weigh-ins. The incident, where Arman dipped forward and headbutted Hooker, caused immediate backlash online. Many fans felt the move crossed the line, and it even raised concerns about whether the fight could have been canceled if Hooker had been cut or injured. Holloway didn't hold back when addressing it during a recent live stream, calling the action really stupid and emphasizing how unnecessary and risky it was. He said plainly, "That's stupid. You're not getting paid at weigh-ins. You're getting paid to fight. Imagine you hurt your guy before the fight. Like, the fight is off, bro. You gotta be really stupid to do something like that, bro. Lose your pay for what? The emotions got the better of you for a little bit. So stupid." Holloway's frustration was clear, and he made it obvious that fighters must protect their paychecks and remain professional even in tense moments. Holloway later appeared on the Korean Zombies podcast, where the conversation shifted toward his skills, his confidence, and the growing debates surrounding his claim to being the best boxer in the UFC. Even after his knockout loss to Ilya, Holloway stood firm, saying criticism doesn't bother him and doesn't change the belief he has in himself. He explained, "I think a lot of people going to tell me like, you're not blah blah because of the fight with Ilya. But it is what it is, bro. That's your problem if you don't think I'm the best boxer in UFC. That's something you need to take up with yourself. When I look myself in the mirror, I tell myself I'm the best boxer in UFC. And that's why I'm one of the best fighters in the world." Holloway added that confidence is essential, and he refuses to let online negativity affect him. "No internet guy that lives with his mom on his mom's internet is ever going to shake me," he said. He admitted that he replies to trolls sometimes because he finds it entertaining and enjoys creating a little drama here and there. He pointed out that many of the people attacking him don't even use real photos or real names online, which shows their own lack of confidence. Holloway wrapped up by saying he knows exactly who he is, and that's what keeps him strong, steady, and unbothered. Move on to another news. Sean O'Malley has shared his honest thoughts on the possibility of seeing Arman take on Ilya, and according to him, the UFC will not book that fight anytime soon. On his latest YouTube video, O'Malley reacted to Arman's dominant win over Dan Hooker, praising how sharp and composed Arman looked, but he also explained why he believes the UFC will avoid matching him up with Ilya. O'Malley made it clear that Arman is the real deal. He said, "Arman is no joke. Arman versus Ilya is an interesting matchup." But despite the excitement around the idea, he doesn't think the UFC wants to risk Ilya's title reign this early. From O'Malley's perspective, Ilya is becoming a star, a champion with charisma, a strong fan base, and the kind of energy the promotion loves to push. He said, "I do not think the UFC will make Arman versus Ilya because I think they love Ilya as a champion. He's a great champion, and I don't think they really want Arman to become champion." O'Malley stressed that Arman's skill set makes him one of the most dangerous fighters in the division, someone who could absolutely threaten Ilya's reign at 155. Then O'Malley surprised even himself. He admitted that he actually believes Ilya might be able to knock Arman out, but he didn't shy away from crediting Arman as a serious threat. He said, "I can't believe I said it. I think Ilya might knock him out. But if anyone has a chance of beating Ilya at 155, it's Arman." O'Malley doubled down on the idea that Arman is a nightmare matchup for almost anyone. His wrestling, his pressure, his speed, and his physicality make him a problem that the UFC may not want to throw at their newly crowned champion right away. To O'Malley, that's the biggest reason this fight won't be next. Not because fans don't want it, not because the matchup doesn't make sense, but because the UFC wants to build Ilya's momentum, not risk derailing it at its peak. He wrapped up his thoughts by once again emphasizing just how dangerous Arman truly is. In O'Malley's words, Arman is legit, and that alone makes the UFC hesitate. Move on to another news. Dana White has finally reacted to the heated altercation between Khamzat and Ian Gary at UFC Qatar, an incident that instantly took over headlines worldwide. What looked like a lighthearted moment on camera quickly escalated into a real confrontation, and the full breakdown of what happened is even more intense when told step by step. It all started at the Fighter Hotel. Ian walked up to Khamzat and grabbed him from the back, trying to greet him in a playful, friendly way. But the touch was way more physical than it needed to be. And Khamzat, being the ultra-competitive and always alert fighter he is, didn't like it at all. As Gary turned to walk away, Khamzat smacked him on the back, still friendly, but with a clear, aggressive edge. Gary spun around, the two exchanged heated words, and Khamzat gave him a hard push, telling him that he would mess him up right then and there. Security immediately rushed in, stepping between them before the situation exploded even further. Although the clip circulating online looked chaotic, Dana White revealed that what fans saw was only part of the story. Speaking about the situation, Dana said that the UFC staff and matchmakers are getting tired of these hallway incidents. He pointed out that this keeps happening card after card, with Khamzat being at the center of attention way too many times. Dana also hinted that something else happened backstage that has not been made public yet, suggesting the tension behind the scenes was even worse than what fans witnessed. Ian Gary, meanwhile, is coming off a massive win over Belal Muhammad. With back-to-back victories over powerful names like Pereira and now Belal, he has been calling for a shot at Islam. He feels justified, he feels ready, and he's using every microphone possible to push his case. Dana continued by saying they had that run-in at the hotel. There was so much bad that happened behind the scenes with that thing. Not good. He added that the matchmakers are not big fans of Khamzat right now for many different reasons, and admitted the UFC didn't do a great job preventing the incident from happening. Overall, Dana's reaction makes one thing clear. This situation was far from small, and the tension between Gary and Khamzat is now on the UFC's radar in a major way.